Good afternoon, everyone. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how, or the strategies that we're using to add on to our knowledge about dividing multi-digit numbers. We're going to be dividing by multiples of multi-digit numbers by multiples of 10, and this will be drawing on our thinking or our not prior knowledge about multiplying by multiples of 10 or multiple powers of 10. And so that will be something that comes in handy when we're thinking about this. So as part of our building our foundation for this, I've been emphasizing the vocabulary terms that are essential for the kids to know. And that is when we're dividing in this particular expression, they should be able to identify the dividend as well as the divisor, and also not just naming them, but also knowing what their purpose is in the expression. And so this number, the dividend, is the number that's being split up or separated into groups. And because we're not dealing with fractions or decimals, then this is typically going to be the first number that we see in the larger one, although it doesn't always work that way. But this second number, it's being divided by 30, that is our divisor. That is going to be the number of groups or how many is in each group. That can be flexible, but this is the number of groups that we have for this. And then what we're trying to find is the answer to that, which will be our quotient, and that tells us how many is in each group. So I'm going to be showing you different strategies that we're using in class. Please understand that with the way that we are working through these strategies, it is building a foundation or scaffolding the kids step by step towards specific strategies and specifically towards a traditional or standard algorithm. Some of it will look familiar. However, these are all building blocks, and everything that we're doing each lesson, it's building on each skill that the kids have been learning. So I thought it would be helpful, and also by request, to show these strategies to you. So first of all, one of the things that we started off learning about taking quotients, or dividends, and dividing just by multiples of 10. So when we started this, we would do exercises kind of like this. And the kids they're pretty fluent with this by now. They can do this as long as they know their multiplication facts automatically, because of their what their prior knowledge is already about multiplying by powers of 10. And of course, we know that we can reverse that, so that's going to be 3, right? So we've been doing that with different numbers, 2 and 3 digits, and they were able to find that. So one of the things that we use to do that is by estimating, to make sure that we can look back on something to see if we're in the ballpark. So we're going to be estimating the quotients of this. All right, and so since this is already a multiple of 10, we're going to be using multiples of 10 to be able to estimate. And so I'm going to take this number and round it, right? And they know to find something that's going to be compatible with this one. And so this is going to be, and they can go up or down, right? And so I'm going to round that, even though the rounding rules doesn't necessarily apply for this one, but I'm going to round that one to 360, only because when I look at 3, or think about the number 3, this number 36 is a multiple of 3. I can multiply 3 times something to get 36, so that's more helpful for me. Yes, I could have rounded down to 350. I could have gone to 300, right? But today we talked about underestimating. So I want to try to stay in the ballpark. And so if I were to do that, then I know that just by pure division, my number is going to get smaller. So 3 and 36, when I think about that, 3 times 12 is 36, but I need to add, think about the 0 there. So 12 times 30 is going to give me 360. So my answer, 360 divided by 30, is approximately 12. I'm going to be somewhere around that ballpark, okay? I'm just estimating that. This is not one of the specific problems they got, this is a helpful step, and this is something they can use, okay? So I'm going to show you some of the strategies that we had to go by. One of them, the kids have to be familiar with using different models to show their thinking, and one of them is a tape diagram. The way this works is you draw a rectangle, and this is going to represent your dividend or the entire amount. And we know how important it is to label those things, and so with this amount being 353, what I'm going to do is because I'm dividing, I know that I have to divide this up, right? And each portion of it is going to have 30 in the group, okay? So I'm going to use a strategy, and we talked about different strategies that we can use to do that. But Connor showed us a strategy in class that we can continue to build by sets of 30 until we get as close as we can get to the number 353. So I can do that by adding 30 each time, or I can think about it as multiplication as well. And so just continue to build until I can get as close as I can. That's 30 times 3 is 90. 4 is 120. No, that's 3. 2, 3, 4, yeah. Okay, 5, 150, 6, 180, 7, 210, 8, 240. We want to keep checking that, okay? And that's 7, 8, 9, 10. The 10th group is 300. We're getting close. The 11th group is 330. The 12th group is 360. Now we see here that this is too large for that, okay? So we're trying to see how many times can we fit that in there, how many groups of the 30, without going higher than that. And so we made it, and he showed us the importance of labeling that. 5th group, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. So just keep adding that number until you get as close as you can to your dividend. We made it to the 11th one. So that means I would have had to divide this into 11. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And each of those will be 30 full sets. Now we can clearly see that that gets us to 330, which is not the entire dividend of 353. So we have to figure out like what's left over, how much is left over, because our dividend was 353 and we made it to the amount of 330. Well, that gives me 23, okay, which is not enough to make a full set. So that we have to call our remainder. Okay, and so I do still need to represent that in my tape diagram. So I'm just going to add that on there, extend it. And the 23 that's left over is considered our remainder that we label right there. Okay, so we showed that we were able to get a quotient, which is the answer when we divide. Our quotient is 11 because we got 11 whole sets. And we had a remainder in this problem, which that was 23. Okay, so this is the tape diagram that we use. We use addition or multiples of our divisor to get as close as we can to this number. And we were able to make it to 11 sets of that, but we still have 23. And it's a remainder because it doesn't give us a full set of 30. So we count that there. And we have talked about, well, what happens when this number is large enough. That means you didn't divide enough, okay? So you have to check your math with that. Now, this is the tape diagram. I labeled that. But what we also did was saw the connection between using our tape diagram, but then building onto the vertical division strategy, okay? So the vertical method is going to look very similar to the standard division algorithm, but it's not that strategy necessarily. It's building towards that. So what we'll do is we continue to talk about those terms. and how to set them up. If our problem is 353 divided by 30, it is essential that the kids know what to set up where and where the numbers go. We know that 353, this is our number we're splitting up, or dividing up, or separating. And so I use those terms flexibly, and that dividend is the number that goes inside right here. And our divisor, that's 30, okay, will go on the outside. And I always set it up with multiplication here because we're multiplying the divisor by another number here to try to get as close as we can, if not equal to our dividend, okay? And so this tape diagram is going to help us because we've already determined that we could get 11 full sets, all right, of 30. It matters where the numbers are. If I were to put 11 right here, that's going to change the value of it because essentially it's almost as if the 0 is on the end of that, which would make it 110 times 30. Now I know 11 times 30 is 330, but if I did 110 times 30, because it's in that position here in the hundreds place, then that means 3,300, and that is not our number. So I talked to the kids about how to make sure their numbers are in the right position, okay? So in the tens place and ones place, so it depends on what your quotient is. So 11 is our quotient. 11 times 30 is 330, and we subtract like we did before and see that we have 23 as our remainder. Okay, that's what's left over here. And we are used to doing this right here. That's the vertical method, but they have to be able to connect it back to this tape diagram or this visual that's right here. And so we're just seeing that playing out here. And then to check the answer, okay, we have learned in the past to use multiplication for that. Well, they have to be able to write an expression for that. And this would be where this part comes in. The quotient times your divisor plus any remainder that's left over, okay? So our quotient, well, first of all, the answer, because we're building an equation, is our our dividend. Okay, so we start with that. So our dividend is equal to whatever the quotient is times our divisor, which is 30, plus whatever is left over. Now I can tell you it's probably going to be another week or so before we talk about orders of operation with expressions, but with some of the kids I've already started teaching them this in small groups, and they were seeing this, right? And they're seeing that, oh, we're going to have to end up grouping that together. Now I'm not expecting that, but I am expecting that they're able to write out an equation where your dividend is equal to your quotient times your divisor plus if there's a remainder that's added, and that's how they check their answer. They would do this part first and then add anything that's remaining behind in order to get right back to their dividend. So the estimating quotient gives them an opportunity to see if they're in the right ballpark, and we can see that we were, even though it wasn't 11, we had 11, remainder 23, and we're very close to getting another set of 30. So it's almost or approximately 12. That shows us we're in the right ballpark. And then our tape diagram is an essential component to give them a visual for showing their thinking there. And even though 30 sets of 11 is not 353, we still have to represent it by adding on whatever additional remainder was behind onto our tape diagram, and then we label it that way. This helped me be able to arrive or move on to the vertical representation, which looks very similar, or it just looks just like traditional, right? And so we just don't approach it in that way, especially when we're doing it or dividing by multiples of 10. Okay, so I hope that this helped. I know that some of the problems are just asking the kids to just divide, which will probably be just the vertical strategy, but they do have to be familiar with doing all three things, even though it may not be on all the same problem. Excuse me, I meant to say four, because writing an equation, that's going to be asked of them too, to check their answer. Being able to do that is also important. Okay, so I hope that this helps, because it's going to keep building, and then they're going to be learning how to divide 2 digits by 2 digits, and then without multiples of 10, and then also 3 digits by 2 digits and 4 digits by 2 digits. So it'll just keep building, but with different strategies. So not all standard algorithm. There'll be other strategies they'll be drawing on, but this is how we're building from what we know or what we've been asked to do at this point. Okay, I hope that helps. And also I want to point out to you that in their math book, the kids should be referring back to the problems that we have done that are like this to help them. It is a resource for them to use. And so when they go back, they'll be able to see, and these are problems I've gone over. So like page 99 in their book, well, this is one of the word problems where it has read, draw, and write. That's where they had to solve it using the tape diagram, and then, solving it that way. Then when they got to these problems like this, it actually started them off with a tape diagram with how much is in a set, and they have to finish that off, use the vertical method, and then also check it with that strategy right there. So the other night, a couple nights ago, they had to go through and just do the even numbers. So 2, 4, and then here's 2, 4, 6, 8, and then number 10. So they did have ones like that. Like, these are not asking them to do a tape diagram. It's just asking them to divide, right, the quotient remainder, and then check it by just writing out whatever the equation is to do that. Okay? So I hope that this helps, and that they're able to refer back to their resources, look back at the problems that they've solved that are similar to this, so that can help them as well. Thank you.